The emergency alarms echoed through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council station. High Counselor Zephyron of the Etherean Empire floated 3 feet above his seat, his translucent blue form flickering with anxiety. Around the massive circular chamber, representatives from 11 other species sat in their designated areas, each looking more worried than the last. "The third fleet is gone," announced General Vextar, his insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly. The Zephyrite warrior's energy-based body crackled with frustrated electricity. "Complete destruction. Not a single ship escaped." Counselor Mordak, a massive rock-like being from the Granite Worlds, slammed his stone fist on the table. The impact sent vibrations through the entire station. "That makes 4 full battle groups lost in 2 months. The Vorthak swarm is unstoppable." Silence filled the chamber. For over 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace across their territories. 12 advanced civilizations working together, sharing technology and wisdom. War was almost unknown among them. When conflicts arose, they were settled through careful negotiation and limited engagements with strict rules. But the Vorthak swarm followed no rules. They had appeared from the dark space beyond the outer rim 18 months ago, ships that looked like massive insects crossed with machines. They consumed everything in their path. Planets, asteroids, even stars were somehow drained of energy to feed their endless hunger. The Council's first response had been diplomatic. They sent ambassadors with gifts and offers of trade. The Vorthak had eaten the ambassadors and converted their ships into more war machines. Then came the military response. The Council's combined fleets were the most advanced in the galaxy. Their weapons could tear apart molecules. Their shields could deflect anything. Their commanders were trained in the ancient arts of honorable warfare. None of it mattered against the swarm. "Our weapons are useless," said Dr. Kellara, the lead scientist from the Nexari Collective. Her multi-armed form gestured at the holographic display showing their latest defeat. "They adapt too quickly. Every tactic we use they counter within hours." High Counselor Zephron's form solidified as he settled back into his chair. His people, the Etherians, were telepathic masters who had guided the Council for millennia. They could read minds across star systems and coordinate fleet movements with thought alone. But even they were helpless against an enemy that seemed to think as one massive organism. "We need new ideas," Zephron said quietly. "New approaches. We are fighting an enemy unlike anything we have ever faced." "What about the Crimson Legion?" suggested Ambassador Telwalk from the Merchant Worlds. "They have the largest fleet." "Already committed," replied General Vextar, "and already destroyed. The Legion's pride meant nothing to the swarm." "The Deep Space Miners Union," offered another voice. "Their ships are built for mining, not fighting." "The Scientific Consortium?" "They build research vessels, not warships. One by one, they went through every member civilization. Each had contributed their best ships and crews. Each had failed against the relentless advance of the Vorthak swarm." Then Counselor Mordak spoke up again. "What about the humans?" The chamber fell silent. Several representatives looked confused. "Humans?" asked Dr. Kellara. "Who are they?" Mordak pulled up a holographic file. "New species. Made contact about 50 years ago. Single-planet civilization from a world they call Earth. They applied for council membership but were placed on the waiting list." Zephron studied the data. Humans were indeed new to galactic civilization. Their technology was primitive compared to council standards. No faster-than-light travel of their own. No energy weapons. No telepathic abilities. They had only recently developed basic spaceflight. "What could such a primitive species possibly offer?" asked General Vexitar dismissively. Mordak scrolled through more files. "According to our cultural observers, they have an unusual history. Their entire planet seems to have been in a state of constant warfare for most of their existence." "Barbarians," muttered someone from the back of the chamber. Perhaps, said Mordak. But effective ones. Their military history is extensive. The holographic display changed to show Earth's history, wars spanning continents, conflicts lasting decades, weapons that grew more deadly with each generation. The assembled representatives watched in fascination and horror as human military technology evolved from simple clubs to weapons that could destroy entire cities. They fight each other constantly, observed Dr. Kellara. How terrible. Yes, agreed Mordak. But notice how they fight. No rules of engagement, no codes of honor. They use whatever tactics give them advantage, regardless of tradition. Zephyron felt a chill in his ethereal form. The council species had fought wars, yes, but always with rules, always with honor. There were things you simply did not do in battle, limits that civilized beings respected. Humans, it seemed, had no such limits. Their technological level is far below our standards, pointed out General Vextar. What good are primitive weapons against the swarm? Perhaps that is exactly what we need, said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador. Yithak from the hive minds of Kepler. The insectoid creature rarely spoke in council sessions, preferring to communicate through pheromone releases that only other hive species could understand. Explain, requested Zephyran. Yithak's compound eyes glittered. We have failed because we think like civilized beings. We follow patterns. We use advanced technology in predictable ways. The swarm adapts because our responses are logical and expected. The ambassador gestured at the human military data still floating in the hologram. These humans, they are unpredictable, chaotic. They use whatever works, not what is proper. Perhaps chaos is what we need against the swarm. Counselor Mordak nodded slowly. The humans have something we lack. Experience with total war. Every one of their major conflicts was a struggle for survival, where anything was acceptable if it meant victory. You are suggesting we invite barbarians to fight our battles? General Vextar's energy form flared with indignation. I am suggesting we invite survivors, replied Mordak, because that is what they are. A species that has survived thousands of years of constant warfare. If anyone knows how to fight an enemy that cannot be reasoned with, it would be them. Zephyron considered this carefully. The Etherians prided themselves on wisdom and careful thought. They had guided the council through 3 millennia of peace and prosperity, but peace and prosperity had not prepared them for the Vorthak swarm. What do we know about their current military capabilities? He asked. Dr. Kellara manipulated the hologram to show recent observations of Earth. Limited space forces. Maybe 200 ships total, most designed for system defense. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and primitive explosives. No energy shields. No quantum manipulation technology. Pitiful, snorted General Vextar. And yet, continued Dr. Kellara, they have been rapidly advancing their technology since making contact with us. Our observers report they are creative in adapting new concepts. The display showed human shipyards working at incredible speed. Humans seemed to build things faster than any other species, though the quality was often rough compared to council standards. They compensate for technological limitations through numbers and innovation, noted Mordak. Look at their industrial capacity. They can produce ships and weapons at a rate that rivals our most automated factories. Crude ships, pointed out General Vextar. Ships that work, countered Mordak. Sometimes crude and functional is better than elegant and destroyed. Zephyron made his decision. Dr. Kellara, what is the current status of human space technology? Basic, but improving. Rapidly. They have developed their own FTL drives based on information we shared during first contact. Their ships are unconventional in design. They seem to prioritize armor and redundant systems over speed or elegance. Like their minds, observed Ambassador Yithak. They assume things will go wrong and plan accordingly. Very well, said Zephron, his form brightening with decision. We will extend an invitation to the humans. As provisional members of the Council, they will be asked to contribute to the war effort against the Vorthak swarm. You cannot be serious, protested General Vextar. They are barely capable of spaceflight. What could they possibly contribute? We will not know until we ask, replied Zephron firmly. And given our current rate of failure, we cannot afford to ignore any possible advantage. The High Counselor activated the Chamber's communication system. Send a priority message to the human homeworld. Request immediate diplomatic contact with their military leadership. Inform them that the Galactic Council formally invites them to participate in our defense against the Vorthak swarm. Dr. Kellara looked puzzled. Should we not provide them with advanced weapons first? Their current technology is inadequate for space combat against the swarm. Zephron considered this. No, let us see what they can do with what they have. If Ambassador Yithak is correct about the value of unpredictability, then giving them our standard weapons might make them too much like us. The message was sent through quantum communication channels. The reply came back within 6 hours, faster than any species had ever responded to a council invitation. The humans accept, announced the communications officer. They are dispatching a military representative immediately. Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. She will arrive with a small fleet for evaluation of the situation. How small? Asked General Vextar. 20 ships. Several council members laughed. 20 ships against a swarm that had destroyed fleets of thousands. But Zephron did not laugh. Something about the human response troubled him. Not their eagerness to help, but the speed of their reply. Most council species would have spent weeks in careful deliberation before committing to such a dangerous mission. Humans had agreed immediately. Either they were foolishly brave, or they understood something about warfare that the council had forgotten. In 3 days, they would find out which. The chamber began to empty as representatives returned to their sectors to prepare for the human arrival. Only Zephron remained, staring at the tactical displays showing the swarm's continued advance. 12 council fleets destroyed, hundreds of thousands of lives lost, 3 star systems consumed, and their best hope now rested with a species that had only just learned to travel between stars. Zephron tried to read the future with his telepathic abilities, but saw only darkness and the distant sound of something. That might have been thunder, or the sound of marching feet. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule. High Counselor Zephron watched through the station's sensors as 20 ships materialized in formation near the council station. They looked nothing like any vessels he had ever seen. Where council ships were sleek and elegant, human ships were blocky and functional. Thick armor plating covered every surface. Weapon ports dotted their hulls like the eyes of some metal insect. They moved with purpose rather than grace, turning in tight formations that spoke of endless practice. Ugly, commented General Vexitar, his energy form crackling with disdain. They look like flying fortresses. That may be the point, observed Counselor Mordak. The lead ship was easily twice the size of a standard council cruiser. Its hull was scarred with what looked like battle damage, though the humans had supposedly seen no major space combat. Strange markings covered its sides, numbers and symbols that made no sense to council eyes. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "Put it through," ordered Zephron. The main display activated, showing the bridge of the human flagship. Zephron had seen images of humans before, but seeing one in person was different. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the center of her bridge, a compact woman with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. The bridge itself was as functional as the ship's exterior, banks of screens and control panels everywhere. Humans sitting at stations, their hands moving constantly over controls. Everything was metal and plastic and blinking lights. No elegant crystal interfaces or telepathic command systems. High Counselor Zephron, Admiral Chen said, her voice clear and direct. Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, thank you for the invitation to join your war effort. Zephron noticed she did not say help with the war effort. She said join, as if she already considered humans equal partners rather than junior assistants. Admiral Chen, welcome to Council Space. We are grateful for your willingness to assist us in this crisis. Before we begin, Chen continued, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. My ships have been monitoring Council communications for the past 72 hours. The tactical situation appears worse than your initial message indicated. Dr. Kellora leaned forward. We have prepared complete briefings on Vorthak technology and tactics. Our most experienced commanders will share their knowledge of proper engagement protocols. Admiral Chen's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. With respect, Doctor, your proper engagement protocols have resulted in the loss of 12 fleets. I'd like to review the actual combat data instead. An uncomfortable silence fell over the council chamber. No one had ever questioned their military procedures so directly. General Vexitar's form flared. Our tactics are based on 3,000 years of successful military theory. We do not simply throw ships at enemies like barbarians. No, agreed Chen calmly. You follow rules. The Vorthak don't. That's why you're losing. The bluntness of her statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Several council members began speaking at once, but Zephron raised a hand for silence. Admiral, perhaps you could explain your assessment of the situation. Chen gestured to someone off-screen. The main display split to show tactical data from human sensors. Their sensor technology was primitive compared to council standards, but the analysis was detailed and thorough. The Vorthak swarm operates as a single organism, Chen began. Your fleets engage them as if they were separate ships that happen to be working together. That's incorrect. Every Vorthak vessel is connected to every other vessel. They share information instantly. When you destroy one ship, the entire swarm learns from that ship's destruction. She manipulated the display to show the progression of council battles. Notice the pattern. In each engagement, the swarm adapts faster as the battle continues. By the end of every fight, they're countering your tactics almost before you use them. Dr. Kellora studied the data. We had observed this pattern, but assumed it was simply efficient communication. It's more than communication. It's evolution in real time. Every weapon you fire teaches them how to defend against it. Every tactic you use shows them how to counter it. You're not fighting separate enemies. You're fighting one enemy that gets smarter every time you hurt it. General Vexitar's energy form dimmed slightly. If this is true, then conventional tactics are indeed useless. How do you propose to fight an enemy that adapts to everything? Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since arriving. It was not a pleasant smile. You don't fight the enemy they become. You fight the enemy they are. Right now. This second. Before they can adapt. She gestured again, and the display showed human fleet formations. They looked chaotic compared to the precise arrangements council forces used. Human military doctrine is based on 3 principles, Chen continued. First, the enemy gets a vote. No plan survives contact with the enemy, so we plan for our plans to fail. Second, adaptation beats optimization. A good plan that can change is better than a perfect plan that can't. Third, victory is the only acceptable outcome. Everything else is negotiable. Counselor Mordak leaned forward with interest. Everything else? Rules of engagement, codes of honor, acceptable losses, traditional tactics. If it doesn't contribute to victory, it's a luxury we can't afford. The chamber fell silent again. What Admiral Chen was describing went against everything the council stood for. They were civilized beings who fought with honor and restraint. Ambassador Yithak clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. You are saying we should abandon our principles? I'm saying your principles are getting you killed, Chen replied. The Vorthak don't care about your honor. They don't respect your rules. They're trying to consume your entire civilization, and you're worried about fighting fair. High Counselor Zephyron felt a chill in his ethereal form. What would you have us do differently? Admiral Chen's image was replaced by a tactical display of the current front lines. Human analysis showed Vorthak positions, supply routes, and fleet concentrations. First, we need to understand their real capabilities, not their ship specifications or weapon systems, their limitations. Every organism has limits, even the swarm. The display highlighted several Vorthak concentrations. They consume resources to grow and adapt. That means they need to maintain supply lines. They coordinate through some kind of communication network. That network can be disrupted. They prioritize certain targets over others. That means they have strategic objectives, not just random expansion. Dr. Kellara studied the analysis with growing excitement. You're suggesting we target their infrastructure rather than their fleets? I'm suggesting we target everything. Their fleets, their infrastructure, their communication networks, their resource-gathering operations, their manufacturing capabilities, everything that keeps them functioning. That would require massive fleet deployments, protested General Vextar. We don't have the ships. You don't need massive fleets. You need the right kind of attacks in the right places at the right times. Chen's smile returned. You've been fighting the swarm like they're an enemy fleet. They're not. They're an enemy civilization. And civilizations have weak points. The display changed to show human ship designs in detail. Council representatives leaned forward to examine the crude but functional vessels. Our ships are built for a different kind of warfare, Chen explained. Heavy armor to survive damage. Redundant systems to keep fighting when things go wrong. Multiple weapon types to stay effective when the enemy adapts to one system. Fast deployment capability to strike before the enemy can prepare. And if the enemy adapts to your tactics? Asked Dr. Kellara. Then we change tactics, immediately, without hesitation, without worrying about tradition or proper procedure. Chen gestured to her crew. Every human officer is trained to think independently. If the plan stops working, they're authorized to create a new plan, on the spot, without asking permission. General Vextar's form flickered with confusion. That sounds like chaos. Controlled chaos. The kind of chaos that keeps enemies guessing. Chen looked directly at the general. How long do your fleet, commanders spend planning an engagement? Standard procedure requires a minimum of 6 hours for tactical analysis and coordination. The swarm adapts in minutes. By the time your commanders finish planning, the enemy they're planning to fight no longer exists. The weight of this revelation settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Everything they had believed about proper military procedure was not just wrong. It was actively helping their enemies. High Counselor Zephyron made a decision that would change the course of the war. Admiral Chen, we place our remaining fleets under your tactical command. What do you need from us? Chen looked surprised by the sudden authority. Complete operational freedom. No interference from Council military doctrine. No requirements to follow traditional engagement rules. And I need intelligence data on every Vorthak position, movement, and activity for the past 6 months. Done, said Zephyron immediately. There's something else, Chen continued. My fleet didn't come here to provide backup for your operations. We came here to win. That means taking risks your people might not be comfortable with. What kind of risks? Asked Counselor Mordak. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. The kind of risks that civilized beings don't usually take. The Vorthak are trying to destroy everything you've built. If we're going to stop them, we might have to become something you're not sure you want as allies. Zephyron considered this carefully. The humans were offering victory, but at a price. They would have to trust these strange, violent beings to fight a war in ways the Council found disturbing. But the alternative was extinction. Admiral Chen, you have our complete authorization. Fight this war however you see fit. Chen nodded grimly. Then we start immediately. I want strike teams ready to deploy in 6 hours. We're going to hit them hard, fast, and in ways they won't expect. As the transmission ended, the council chamber remained silent. They had just handed their fate to a species they barely understood. General Vextar voiced what everyone was thinking. What have we done? High Counselor Zephyron stared at the tactical displays showing the advancing swarm. What we had to do. The question now is whether we can live with the consequences. Outside the station, human ships began moving into attack formations. Their movements were sharp and aggressive, like predators preparing to hunt. The war was about to change completely. Admiral Chen stood in the war room aboard the UES Indomitable, studying the holographic displays that showed the current tactical situation. Around her, human officers worked alongside council representatives who were still adjusting to human methods. Target confirmed, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the intelligence station. Vorthak mining operation in the Kepler 442 system. 12 harvester ships stripping the asteroid belt. Dr. Kellera looked up from her analysis console. Admiral, those harvester ships are not military targets. They pose no direct threat to our fleets. Chen turned to face the Nexari scientist. Doctor, those harvesters are feeding raw materials to Vorthak manufacturing centers. Every ton of metal they collect becomes part of a new warship. In human military doctrine, that makes them legitimate targets. But the rules of engagement clearly state that non-combatant vessels should not be targeted unless they pose an immediate threat, protested General Vextar, his energy form flickering with agitation. General, there are no non-combatants in this war, Chen replied firmly. The Vorthak don't distinguish between military and civilian targets. Every one of their ships is part of their war machine. Every resource they gather strengthens their ability to destroy us. Commander Sarah Kim, Chen's tactical officer, highlighted several positions on the display. Admiral, we have 3 strike groups in position. Human ships with council escorts, as requested. Chen nodded. The past 2 weeks had been spent reorganizing the combined forces into smaller, more flexible units. Instead of massive fleets moving in formation, she had created dozens of independent strike groups that could operate without central coordination. The council representatives were still uncomfortable with this approach. This dispersal of forces violates every principle of concentrated firepower, observed Councillor Mordak. How can we achieve decisive victories with such small units? We're not trying to achieve decisive victories, Chen explained. We're trying to achieve constant pressure. The swarm adapts to whatever pattern of attack we use. So we're not going to use a pattern. She gestured to the tactical display, which showed human strike groups scattered across a dozen star systems. Every group operates independently. Different targets, different timing, different tactics. By the time the swarm adapts to one attack, 5 more are hitting different objectives. High Counselor Zephyron materialized his form more solidly as he considered this. You are sacrificing the possibility of crushing victories in favor of guaranteed smaller successes. Exactly. Small successes add up. Crushing defeats don't. Chen manipulated the display to show Vorthak resource flows. Look at their logistics network. They're not just expanding randomly. They're building a supply chain to support their advance. We're going to break that chain. Lieutenant Commander Torres announced incoming intelligence. Admiral, reconnaissance drones have identified the Vorthak command structure in the Rigel sector. Massive bioship, roughly the size of a small moon. Heavy escort fleet. That's their sector coordinator, explained Dr. Kellera excitedly. If we could destroy it, the entire Rigel sector would lose coordination. General Vextar's form brightened. A decisive strike. We could commit our entire remaining fleet to a coordinated assault. No, said Chen immediately. The room fell silent. Every council representative stared at her in confusion. Admiral, said Zephyron carefully, This represents exactly the kind of strategic target our forces are designed to engage. Why would we not attempt to destroy it? Chen called up detailed sensor data on the Vorthak command ship. Because it's a trap. She highlighted the escort formations surrounding the bioship. Look at the positioning. Perfect defensive formation, optimal sensor coverage, overlapping fields of fire. This isn't a command ship conducting routine operations. This is bait. Commander Kim nodded in agreement. The swarm has studied our previous battles. They know Council forces prefer large, coordinated attacks against high-value targets. So they've given us exactly what we want to attack. You're suggesting they want us to find their command ship? Asked Dr. Kellara. I'm suggesting they've learned from every engagement we've had with them, Chen replied. They know how Council fleets operate. They've prepared the perfect counter to our most likely response. General Vextar's energy form crackled with frustration. Then what do you propose? We cannot simply ignore such a valuable target. Chen smiled grimly. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to attack it in a way they don't expect. She called up a different set of tactical displays. Strike Group. 7 has been shadowing this command ship for 6 days. The Vorthak know they're there. It's impossible to hide a fleet completely, but they think Strike Group 7 is conducting reconnaissance for a larger assault. Are they not? Asked Counselor Mordak. No. Strike Group 7 is going to attack alone. Right now. While the swarm is still waiting for our main fleet to arrive. The room erupted in protests. Council representatives spoke over each other, explaining why this was impossible, suicidal, contrary to all military logic. Chen waited for them to finish. Commander Kim, order Strike Group 7 to commence attack. Target the escort ships first, then the command vessel. Admiral, said Zephyron urgently, Strike Group 7 consists of only 8 ships. The escort fleet has 43 vessels. This is not a tactical engagement. It's a suicide mission. Strike Group 7 is not trying to destroy the entire escort fleet, Chen explained as she watched the tactical display update with real-time battle information. They're trying to create chaos and confusion while achieving their primary objective, the display showed the human attack beginning. Instead of the standard Council approach of forming battle lines and engaging in organized fleet combat, the human ships scattered immediately after dropping out of hyperspace. What are they doing? Asked General Vextar. They have broken formation completely. They were never in formation to begin with, replied Commander Kim. Each ship has an independent mission. The Vorthak are expecting a coordinated fleet assault. Instead, they're getting 8 separate attacks happening simultaneously. The Council representatives watched in fascination and horror as the human tactics unfolded. One ship launched torpedo salvos at the Vorthak escorts while accelerating at maximum speed toward the edge of the system. Another ship used ramming attacks against enemy vessels, relying on its heavy armor to survive collisions that would destroy lighter Council ships. They're using their ships as weapons, observed Dr. Kellara with shock. When necessary, agreed Chen. Ship captains are authorized to use whatever tactics give them the best chance of completing their mission. A third human ship had somehow penetrated the escort screen and was conducting close-range attacks against the command vessel itself. Its weapons were primitive compared to Council standards, but it was firing them at point-blank range where even simple projectiles could penetrate advanced defenses. This is madness, protested General Vextar. They're going to lose every ship. They're going to complete their mission, Chen corrected. Look at the tactical situation. The Vorthak escort fleet was indeed destroying the human attackers, but their perfect defensive formation had collapsed. Ships were moving out of position to engage individual human vessels. The overlapping fields of fire had gaps. The command ships' escorts were being drawn away from their protective positions. And then the real attack began. What's happening? Asked Zephyron as new contacts appeared on the display. Phase 2, said Chen. While the Vorthak were focused on strike, Group 7, Strike Groups 3 and 11 moved into position. They've been waiting for the escorts to break formation. 20 more human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vorthak defensive perimeter. But instead of engaging the escort fleet, they launched everything they had at the now exposed command ship. "Torpedo spread away," reported the communications officer, relaying messages from the strike groups. "Multiple hits on the target. Bioship is taking critical damage." The massive Vorthak command vessel, caught without its full escort screen, tried to retreat toward its remaining defenders. But human ships were already moving to intercept, their captains making split-second decisions without waiting for orders from Fleet Command. "The bioship is breaking apart," announced Dr. Kellara with amazement. "The entire Vorthak formation is collapsing." Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Strike groups, begin immediate withdrawal. Do not pursue fleeing enemies. Return to rally points Alpha through Delta." "Admiral," said Zephron quietly, "how many ships did we lose?" 14 out of 28 engaged, Chen replied without emotion. "Acceptable losses for a successful mission." The council representatives stared at her in shock, half their attack force destroyed, and she called it acceptable. "Admiral," said General Vexitar carefully, "in council military tradition, losses of 50% constitute a catastrophic defeat. In human military tradition, mission success is the only metric that matters," Chen replied. "We destroyed a critical enemy asset and disrupted their entire sector coordination. The tactical advantage gained is worth far more than the ships we lost." Commander Kim updated the strategic display. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from other strike groups. Mining operation in Kepler 442 has been destroyed. Supply convoy in the Wolf system has been eliminated. Manufacturing complex in Proxima Centauri is under attack." Chen nodded with satisfaction. "The pattern is working. Simultaneous attacks across multiple systems. The swarm can't adapt to all of them at once." Dr. Kellara studied the incoming reports. "Admiral, these attacks are achieving something we never expected. The Vorthak are actually retreating from some positions." "Of course they are," said Chen. "They're losing resources faster than they can replace them. For the first time since this war started, we're making expansion cost more than it's worth." High Counselor Zephron felt a mixture of hope and unease. The human tactics were undeniably effective, but they required a mindset that troubled him deeply. "Admiral, your crews fight with remarkable determination. But do they understand that many of these missions are essentially suicide attacks?" Chen's expression hardened. "Counselor, every human who volunteered for this mission understands exactly what we're asking of them. They understand that this war isn't about them personally. It's about survival of everything they care about." She gestured to the strategic display showing the Vorthak advance. "The swarm has consumed 3 star systems and billions of lives. If we lose this war, they'll consume billions more. Every human in this fleet volunteered knowing they might die. Because someone has to be willing to pay that price, or everyone dies." The room fell silent as the implications settled over the council representatives. They were witnessing something they had never seen before. A species that was willing to sacrifice individual lives for the survival of civilization itself. "There's something else," Chen continued. "The Vorthak aren't just adapting to our military tactics. They're starting to learn that war with humans costs more than they expected, and that's a lesson we need to keep teaching them." Commander Kim announced another incoming report. "Admiral, Vorthak forces in the Rigel sector are pulling back toward their main concentration areas. They're abandoning outer positions." Chen smiled for the first time in days. "They're learning to be afraid. Good. Fear makes enemies make mistakes." As the reports continued to arrive, showing successful attacks across a dozen star systems, the council representatives began to understand what they were really witnessing. This wasn't just a change in military tactics. This was a change in the nature of the war itself. For the first time, the Vorthak swarm was facing an enemy that fought without restraint, without mercy, and without fear. And for the first time, the swarm was losing. The human industrial complex had been working for 6 weeks straight. Admiral Chen stood in the observation deck of the massive shipyard that humans had constructed in the Vega system, watching as dozens of new vessels rolled off the production lines. They were not beautiful ships. Council representatives had stopped trying to hide their distaste for human engineering. Where their own vessels were elegant works of art, human ships looked like they had been built in a hurry by people who cared more about function than form, which was exactly the case. "Production report, Admiral," announced Chief Engineer Patricia Walsh, her uniform stained with grease and metal shavings. "We've completed another 47 vessels this week, 32 assault corvettes, 12 heavy destroyers, and 3 carrier platforms." Dr. Kellera looked up from her analysis station in amazement. "Admiral, this production rate is impossible. No civilization can construct warships this quickly." "Council civilizations can't," agreed Chen. "We're not building them to Council standards." She gestured toward the shipyard, where human workers swarmed over partially completed hulls. "These ships are designed to last 6 months in combat conditions. After that, they'll need complete overhauls or replacement. But 6 months is longer than we expect this war to last." General Vextar's energy form flickered with confusion. "You are deliberately building inferior ships?" "We're building ships, optimized for our tactical requirements," Commander Kim corrected. "Heavy armor for survivability, redundant systems for reliability, rapid deployment capability for tactical flexibility, simple controls for easy training." Chief Walsh pulled up technical specifications on the display. "Each ship uses standardized components that can be manufactured anywhere in human space. No exotic materials, no advanced manufacturing techniques, nothing that requires specialized facilities." "But why?" asked Counselor Mordak. "Surely better ships would be more effective." Admiral Chen called up production statistics that made the Council representatives stare in disbelief. "We can build 12 of these ships in the time it takes to build 1 Council vessel. Which is more effective, 1 perfect ship or 12? Good enough ships?" The mathematics were undeniable. Human industrial capacity was overwhelming the Vorthak ability to destroy human ships. For every vessel the swarm eliminated, 3 more appeared to take its place. "There's another advantage," continued Chen. "The Vorthak adapt to our technology, but they can't adapt faster than we can change it." She highlighted several ship designs on the display. Mark I assault corvettes used kinetic projectile weapons. The swarm developed armor to counter them, so we switched to Mark II corvettes with shaped charge warheads. When they adapted to those, we built Mark III corvettes with plasma cannons purchased from Council suppliers. Dr. Kellera studied the progression with growing understanding. "You're treating ship design like an evolutionary process. Each generation adapts to counter the enemy's previous adaptation." "Exactly. And we can evolve faster than they can." Chen gestured to the shipyard where workers were already modifying the latest designs. "By the time the swarm figures out how to counter Mark III corvettes, we'll be deploying Mark IV corvettes with completely different weapon systems." Commander Kim updated the tactical display with current frontline positions. "Admiral, the new strategy is showing results. Vorthak advance has stopped in 7 sectors. They're actually pulling back from forward positions in 3 sectors. They're learning that rapid expansion is no longer profitable," observed Chen with satisfaction. "Every system they try to consume costs them more ships than they can afford to lose." High Counselor Zephyron materialized his form more solidly as he studied the tactical situation. "Admiral, these results are encouraging, but I'm concerned about the cost. Human casualties are substantial." The casualty reports were indeed sobering. Human forces were losing ships and crews at a rate that would have forced any Council species to seek immediate peace negotiations. But the humans kept fighting. "Counselor, we knew this would be expensive," Chen replied quietly. "But we're not just fighting for military victory. We're fighting to make the Vorthak understand that attacking our space comes with an unacceptable price." She called up intelligence reports showing Vorthak internal communications that human cryptographers had managed to decode. The swarm is starting to debate the wisdom of continued expansion. For the first time in their recorded history, they're encountering an enemy that costs more to defeat than the victory is worth. Chief Walsh interrupted with an urgent report. Admiral, we have a problem. Vorthak forces are massing for a major assault on the Centauri system. Intelligence estimates over 300 bioships, plus escorts. The room fell silent. 300 Vorthak vessels represented the largest concentration of enemy forces seen since the war began. They're trying to achieve a decisive victory, analyzed General Vextar. Destroy our industrial base in one overwhelming assault. Chen studied the intelligence data carefully. No, they're not trying to win the war. They're trying to make us afraid to continue fighting. Dr. Kalara looked puzzled. I don't understand the distinction. The swarm has learned that we can match their production capacity, but they think we're like other council species, that will surrender if they inflict enough casualties in a single engagement. Chen's expression grew grim. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Commander Kim brought up defensive preparations around the Centauri system. Admiral, we have 47 ships in the system currently, nowhere near enough to stop a force of that size. We're not going to stop them, Chen announced. We're going to let them take the system. Then we're going to teach them why that was a mistake. The council representatives erupted in protests. The Centauri system contained major shipyards and manufacturing facilities. Losing it would be a catastrophic blow to human industrial capacity. Chen waited for the objections to subside. The shipyards in Centauri are already being evacuated. Equipment is being moved to backup facilities in the Ross and Wolf systems. By the time the Vorthak arrive, they'll be capturing empty buildings. But the strategic value of the system itself, began Counselor Mordak, is a trap, Chen interrupted. The Vorthak want to occupy Centauri because they think it will cripple our production capacity. We're going to let them occupy it, and then we're going to show them what it really costs to hold territory against an enemy that doesn't accept defeat. Commander Kim updated the display with new tactical information. Admiral, strike groups Alpha through Sierra are moving into position around the Centauri system. Per your orders, they're staying outside the immediate combat zone. Chen nodded. When the Vorthak take the system, they'll establish defensive positions and start converting our facilities to their own use. That's when we hit them. With what? Asked General Vextar. 47 ships cannot defeat 300 enemy vessels. 47 ships can't defeat 300 enemy vessels in open space, Chen agreed. But 300 enemy vessels trying to hold fixed positions can be destroyed by an enemy willing to use unconventional tactics. She called up technical specifications for a new type of human vessel that made the council representatives stare in horror. Automated attack drones, explained Chief Walsh. No crew, minimal life support, maximum armor and weapons. They're designed for one-way missions. Dr. Kellara studied the specifications with growing alarm. These are essentially guided missiles the size of frigates. Exactly. We can build them faster than we can train crews to operate them, and they can execute attack patterns that no sane pilot would attempt. The display showed hundreds of the drone ships being prepared for deployment. Each one carried enough firepower to cripple a Vorthak bioship, and they were designed to reach their targets regardless of defensive fire. This is not warfare, protested General Vextar. This is automated slaughter. This is what happens when you threaten the survival of human civilization, Chen replied coldly. The Vorthak want to play for keeps. We're going to show them what that really means. High Counselor Zephyron felt a chill in his ethereal form. Admiral, what you're describing sounds like total war. Chen turned to face him directly. Counselor, that's exactly what this is. Total war. Complete commitment of our entire civilization to the destruction of the enemy. No restraints, no mercy, no acceptable losses that are too high if they achieve victory. Commander Kim announced incoming reports from the front lines. Admiral, Vorthak assault on Centauri has begun. Initial resistance is collapsing as planned. Enemy forces are advancing toward primary objectives. Excellent, said Chen. Signal all strike groups to begin Phase 2 operations. Full deployment of autonomous attack units. Target priority is containment, not destruction. Containment? Asked Dr. Kellara. We're not trying to destroy the Vorthak fleet immediately, Chen explained. We're trying to trap them in the system, make it impossible for them to retreat. Then we're going to destroy them piece by piece until none of them survive. The tactical display updated to show swarms of human attack drones converging on the Centauri system from multiple directions. The Vorthak, focused on their assault against the remaining human defenders, were caught completely off guard by the sudden appearance of hundreds of new attackers. The drones are using kamikaze tactics, observed General Vextar with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. They're ramming enemy ships rather than trying to survive combat. Each drone is programmed with target priorities and basic tactical algorithms, explained Chief Walsh. They don't need to survive. They just need to inflict damage before being destroyed. Commander Kim updated the tactical display with real-time battle data. Admiral, the containment is working. Vorthak forces are trapped in the system. They're taking heavy casualties but can't retreat. Chen watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Signal all strike groups to commence Phase 3, full assault, no survivors. What followed was unlike anything the Council had ever witnessed. Human forces attacked the trapped Vorthak fleet with a combination of manned ships, automated drones, and weapons systems that seemed designed specifically to maximize enemy casualties regardless of cost. The humans used their own ships as weapons when necessary. They deployed mines that could think for themselves. They launched missiles that could pursue targets across entire star systems. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider acceptable. And it worked. Vorthak fleet is collapsing, reported Commander Kim 6 hours later. Estimated enemy losses, 87% of engaged forces. Our losses, 63 ships, and approximately 1,500 drones. Dr. Kellara stared at the tactical display in amazement. Admiral, you destroyed the largest Vorthak fleet concentration in the war, and you did it by sacrificing a single star system. No, Chen corrected. We destroyed the largest Vorthak fleet concentration by making them think they could take our territory and hold it. The Centauri system was just the bait. High Counselor Zephron studied the aftermath of the battle with a mixture of awe and deep unease. The humans had achieved an overwhelming victory, but at a cost that made him question what kind of allies they were becoming. Admiral, he said quietly, your people fight with a determination that borders on terrifying. Admiral Chen looked at him with eyes that had seen too much combat. Counselor, we fight to win. If that terrifies our enemies, good. If it disturbs our allies... She shrugged. That's a price we're willing to pay. The war had changed completely. The Vorthak were no longer expanding. They were struggling to survive against an enemy that treated warfare as a simple matter of mathematics. Apply enough force in the right places, and any enemy could be destroyed. The question now was whether the galaxy would be safe with humans as its protectors. The Vorthak retreat had become a rout. Admiral Chen stood in the command center aboard the UES Indomitable, watching as the last organized swarm formations fled toward the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. After 8 months of brutal warfare, the impossible had happened. The swarm was broken. Final casualty reports, Admiral, announced Commander Kim, her voice carrying exhaustion that matched everyone else in the room. Vorthak losses, estimated 94% of their total fleet. Strength, confirmed destruction of their primary hive ships, manufacturing centers, and resource extraction operations. Dr. Kellara looked up from her analysis station, her multi-armed form trembling with fatigue and amazement. Admiral, the swarm is attempting to establish communication. They're requesting terms for surrender. The command center fell, silent. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Vorthak swarm was asking to surrender. High Counselor Zephyron materialized his form more solidly than usual, his ethereal body glowing with a mixture of relief and deep concern. "Admiral, this is unprecedented. The swarm has never shown any inclination toward negotiation. They've never faced an enemy that made war too expensive to continue," Chen replied grimly. "Put them through." The main display activated, showing a Vorthak bioship that looked nothing like the pristine vessels they had encountered at the beginning of the war. This ship was scarred, damaged, and barely functional. The alien intelligence that spoke through its communication systems sounded equally broken. Human forces, the voice was mechanical, translated through systems that struggled to convert Vorthak concepts into human language. "We acknowledge defeat. We request cessation of hostilities." General Vextar's energy form flickered with surprise. "They're actually surrendering. After all this destruction, they're willing to admit defeat." Chen studied the image of the damaged bioship carefully. "What are your terms?" "We will withdraw beyond the galactic rim. We will not return to this region of space. We ask only for survival of our remaining population," Commander Kim whispered urgently to Chen. "Admiral, our intelligence estimates indicate they still have enough ships to cause significant damage if they choose to fight to the end." Chen nodded slightly, then addressed the Vorthak directly. "Your withdrawal is acceptable, but there will be conditions. State your conditions. First, complete evacuation of all occupied systems within 30 standard days. Second, transfer of all captured technology and resources to Council forces. Third, establishment of monitoring stations to verify your compliance with withdrawal terms." The Vorthak bioship was silent for long moments. When it finally responded, the mechanical voice carried something that might have been resignation. "Conditions are acceptable. We will comply." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. The war that had threatened to destroy galactic civilization was over. But the aftermath would prove more challenging than the conflict itself. "Admiral," said High Counselor Zephyron carefully, "the Council will need to discuss the implications of this victory. Your methods have been effective, but they raise questions about the future." Chen turned to face the assembled Council representatives. "What kind of questions?" Dr. Kel'ara gestured to the tactical displays showing the scale of destruction across the former war zone. "Admiral, human forces have fundamentally changed the nature of warfare in our galaxy. The weapons you've developed, the tactics you've employed, they represent a capability that concerns many Council members. You're worried about what happens now that the war is over," Chen said bluntly. "Yes," admitted Counselor Mordak. "Your people have demonstrated an ability to wage war more effectively than any species in galactic history. That makes you valuable allies, but also potentially dangerous ones." General Vextar's energy form pulsed with nervous energy. "Admiral, during this conflict, human forces have deployed weapon systems that could destroy entire star systems. You've used tactics that prioritize victory over every other consideration. The question facing the Council is whether such capabilities can coexist with galactic peace." Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the faces of the beings who had asked for humanity's help and were now afraid of what they had unleashed. "Counselor Zephyron," she said finally, "what exactly is the Council asking?" The High Counselor's form solidified completely, a sign of deep seriousness among his people. "Admiral, the Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership, with all the rights and privileges that entails. However, there would need to be certain understandings about the use of your military capabilities, such as restrictions on weapons development, agreements about when and how human forces could be deployed, oversight of your military industries." Zephyron paused. assurances that humanity's approach to warfare would be moderated by Council wisdom. Commander Kim stepped forward angrily. You want to disarm us after we saved your civilization? We want to ensure that the galaxy remains safe, replied Dr. Kellara. Your methods were necessary against the swarm, but they represent a level of military capability that could threaten galactic stability. Admiral Chen held up a hand to silence her officers. I see. So the Council wants humanity to be strong enough to protect the galaxy, but not strong enough to threaten the Council. That's a crude way of putting it, said General Vextar, but essentially accurate. Chen walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars for several minutes. When she turned back, her expression was thoughtful but firm. High Counselor, let me explain something about human nature. We didn't develop our military capabilities because we're naturally violent. We developed them because we're naturally protective. She gestured to the displays showing human casualties from the war. 37,000 human military personnel died in this conflict. Each one of them volunteered knowing they might not survive. They didn't fight because they enjoyed killing. They fought because they couldn't stand the thought of the swarm destroying innocent lives. Dr. Kellara looked puzzled. I don't understand the distinction. The distinction is motivation, Chen explained. We don't fight to conquer or dominate. We fight to protect. But when something threatens what we care about, we fight without limits until the threat is eliminated. High Counselor Zephron considered this carefully. You're saying that human military capability is defensive in nature? I'm saying that human military capability is protective in nature, Chen corrected. We will use whatever force is necessary to defend our friends, our principles, and our way of life. But we have no interest in conquering other species or imposing our will on others. Commander Kim added, unless you threaten us or our allies, then we become your worst nightmare. The Council representatives exchanged uncertain glances. Chen's explanation was reassuring in some ways, but troubling in others. Admiral, said Counselor Mordak slowly, how can the Council be certain that humanity will always consider us friends rather than threats? Chen smiled for the first time in weeks. Counselor, you asked us to help save your civilization. We lost 37,000 people doing exactly that. If you think we're going to turn around and attack the people we just died protecting, you don't understand humans at all. She gestured to her officers and crew. Every person in this fleet has friends and family back on Earth. They want to go home to peaceful lives. They don't want to conquer the galaxy. They want to know that the galaxy is safe so they can live their lives without worrying about the next existential threat. High Counselor Zephron felt the truth of her words through his telepathic abilities. Chen was not lying or concealing hostile intentions. She genuinely wanted peace. But she was also absolutely committed to being prepared for war. Admiral, he said carefully, what would you propose as terms for human membership in the Council? Chen considered this. Full membership with equal voice in Council decisions. No restrictions on human military development or deployment, but agreement to consult with the Council before taking major military actions. And recognition of humanity as the Council's primary military force. That would make humans the de facto military leaders of the entire galaxy, observed General Vextar. Yes, Chen agreed, because we're the ones willing to do what's necessary to keep it safe. Dr. Kellara looked troubled. Admiral, doesn't that create the risk of military thinking dominating Council policy? Doctor, does the risk of attack dominate your personal policy? Chen asked. Do you spend all your time thinking about how to hurt other people? Of course not. Neither do we. We spend most of our time thinking about science, art, exploration, trade, diplomacy, all the same things you do. But when someone threatens those peaceful activities, we're prepared to defend them. Commander Kim added, the difference is that we're good at it. High Counselor Zephron made his decision. Admiral Chen, the Council accepts your proposal. Humanity will be granted full membership with recognition as our primary military force. In return, we ask only that you remember the principles you've stated today. Which principles? Asked Chen. That you fight to protect, not to conquer. That you use your capabilities to defend civilization, not to impose your will upon it. Admiral Chen extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. High Counselor, as long as the Council remembers that protecting civilization sometimes requires doing things that civilized people find disturbing, Zephron reached out with his ethereal form and briefly made contact with Chen's hand. The gesture looked strange, but both species understood its significance. "Admiral," he said quietly, "the galaxy is fortunate to have guardians like humanity. I hope we never give you reason to doubt our friendship." Chen's expression grew serious. "Counselor, friendship is earned through shared trials. We've just been through the worst trial in galactic history together. If that doesn't make us permanent allies, nothing will." As the ceremony concluded and the Council representatives departed, Commander Kim approached Chen privately. "Admiral, do you really trust them?" Chen looked out at the stars where Vorthak ships were still fleeing toward the galactic rim. "Commander, I trust them to be exactly what they are. Civilized beings who want to live in peace. That's why they need us. And if they change their minds about wanting us as allies," Admiral Chen's expression grew cold. "Then they'll learn the same lesson the Vorthak just learned, that threatening humanity's friends is a very expensive mistake. The war was over. The galaxy was safe, and everyone understood that it would stay that way as long as humans were watching the darkness between the stars. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as the guardians that civilized species needed when civilization itself was threatened. It was a responsibility they would carry for generations to come."
The small survey ship Prospector drifted through the purple clouds of the uncharted nebula. Its engines hummed softly as it moved deeper into the colorful gas clouds that most ships avoided. Commander Marcus Reed stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. "Anything yet, Tom?" Reed asked, rubbing his tired eyes. Thomas Reeves shook his head as he checked the sensor readings. "Nothing valuable, Commander. Just more gas and dust." He tapped his screen with frustration. "We've been searching for 3 weeks now. Maybe High Command was wrong about resources in this sector." Reed nodded but said nothing. Their mission was simple: find new materials to help the war effort. Humanity needed metals, fuel, and anything else they could use against the Vex Imperium. For 30 years, humans had been losing ground to these aliens. Each year, the Vex took another colony, another mining station, another piece of human space. "Wait," called Dr. Eliza Ward from her station. The engineer pointed at her screen. "I'm getting an odd reading about 20,000 kilometers to our port side. More space junk." Reed asked, "They have found plenty of that already." "No." Ward adjusted her instruments. "It's big, really big, and it's giving off a faint energy signature." "Put it on the main screen," Reed ordered. The screen flickered and zoomed in on a dark shape hidden within the nebula's gases. At first, it looked like an asteroid, but as the image cleared, everyone on the bridge fell silent. "That's a ship," whispered Dr. James Miller, the team's xenobiologist. "A human ship." Reed stared in disbelief. The vessel was massive, at least a kilometer long. Its dark hull was shaped like an arrow, with what looked like weapon ports along its sides. Though parts of it showed damage, the ship was largely intact. "Run an identification scan," Reed ordered. Reeves worked quickly, his fingers flying over his console. "Sir, this can't be right. According to the database, this ship matches the profile of the UES Thunderchild." "That's impossible," Ward said. "The Thunderchild was destroyed at the Battle of Proxima Centauri over 200 years ago. It's a legend." Reed had heard the stories. The Thunderchild was the pride of the First Expansion Fleet, humanity's most powerful warship, lost during humanity's first major space war. Some claimed it had weapons that could destroy whole fleets and armor that nothing could penetrate. Legend or not, that ship is there, Reed said. And if even half the stories are true, what we found could change everything. He turned to his crew. Prepare a boarding team. We're going to take a closer look. 2 hours later, Reed floated through the empty, dark halls of the massive ship with Ward, Reeves, and Miller. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that seemed to go on forever. Main power has been offline for centuries, Ward said, checking her scanner. But there's still a minimal energy signature coming from somewhere deep inside. Look at the size of these hallways, Miller said in awe. They built ships differently back then. Reeves ran his hand along a wall. The metal feels strange, almost warm. Reed's communicator beeped. Commander, came the voice of Lieutenant Davis from the prospector. We're picking up 3 ships entering the nebula. Configuration matches Vex scout vessels. Reed cursed. Have they spotted us? Unknown, sir, but they're heading in your direction. Understood. Stand by for emergency extraction. Reed turned to his team. We need to move quickly. Let's find the bridge. They pushed deeper into the ship, following schematics that Reeves had pulled from the historical database. As they moved, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. After navigating through massive empty chambers and pitch-black corridors, they reached a sealed door with faded lettering. Command Bridge. This is it, Ward said, examining the door's control panel. It's locked, but I might be able to. A distant boom echoed through the ship, making them all freeze. What was that? Miller whispered. Reed's communicator crackled. Commander, the Vex ships have opened fire on the prospector. We're taking heavy damage. We can't. The transmission cut off. Davis? Davis. Reed called, but there was no answer. They found us, Reeves said grimly. The prospector is gone. We're stranded. Another explosion, closer this time, rocked the ship. They're boarding, Reed realized. We need to find somewhere to hide. Ward worked frantically on the door panel. Almost got it. There. The ancient door slid open with a hiss, revealing a massive circular room filled with control stations, all dark and silent. In the center stood a raised platform with what looked like a captain's chair. They rushed inside, and Reeves sealed the door behind them. We need weapons, a way to contact help, or a miracle, Reed said, scanning the bridge. Look for anything useful. Ward moved to what appeared to be the main console. Some of these systems might still work. Let me try to. She touched the console, and suddenly, faint blue lights began to glow across the bridge. A soft hum grew around them as dormant systems stirred to life. What did you do? Reed asked. Nothing. A holographic sphere appeared above the central platform, pulsing gently. When it spoke, its voice was deep and clear. Unauthorized personnel detected on command bridge, initiating security protocols. Miller stepped back. Is that an eye? Atlas defense system online. Ship status. Critical. Power levels. Minimal. Crew count. 0. Time since last active duty. 217 years, 43 days, 7 hours. Reed stepped forward. We're humans from the United Earth Fleet. We found your ship drifting. The blue sphere pulsed. Scanning. Human life signs confirmed. Current military identification recognized. Status of the First Expansion War. Reed looked at his companions in confusion. The First Expansion War ended over 2 centuries ago. The sphere dimmed for a moment. Processing historical data update. Current threat assessment required. We're being hunted by Vex troops, Reed explained. They destroyed our ship. They'll find us soon. Vex Imperium forces detected aboard this vessel. Atlas confirmed. Initiating minimal defense protocols with available power. Throughout the ship, they heard systems powering up. Lights flickered on in the bridge, and screens came to life, showing different areas of the ship where dark figures moved swiftly through the corridors. "What is this ship?" Reed asked. "The historical records say the UES Thunderchild was destroyed." "This is indeed the United Earth ship Thunderchild," Atlas replied. "Battle Dreadnought, Titan class. I am Atlas, the ship's command artificial intelligence. The Thunderchild was critically damaged, but not destroyed. Emergency protocols initiated a blind jump to prevent capture. After arrival in this nebula, all non-essential systems were shut down to preserve core functionality." A loud bang came from outside the bridge door. The Vex had found them. "Can you help us?" Reed asked desperately. "Can this ship still fight?" The blue sphere grew brighter. "The Thunderchild was built for one purpose, Commander Reed, to protect humanity. With minimal power, I can activate basic defense systems. With your assistance, I can do more." Another bang, louder this time. The door wouldn't hold much longer. "What do you need from us?" Reed asked. "Your authorization to awaken this ship," Atlas replied, "to bring the Thunderchild back to war." Reed looked at his team, then back at the glowing sphere. "Do it." The lights on the bridge grew brighter. Throughout the massive vessel, long dormant systems began to power up. The deck hummed beneath their feet. "Thunderchild awakening protocols initiated," Atlas announced. "And Commander, the stars will burn." The bridge of the Thunderchild hummed with increasing power as lights flickered on across the massive control room. Reed and his team watched in awe as ancient screens came to life, showing the status of the enormous ship. "Warning," Atlas announced, its blue sphere pulsing with each word. "Vex forces have breached Deck 7. Internal defense systems activating." On one of the screens, they watched as hidden panels in the ship's corridors slid open. Small turrets emerged and fired precise energy bursts at the alien intruders. The Vex soldiers scattered, clearly surprised by the sudden defense. "Those weapons still work after 2 centuries?" Reeves asked in disbelief. "The Thunderchild was designed to endure," Atlas replied. "However, current power levels are at 12% of capacity. Full combat capabilities cannot be restored without repairs." Another explosion shook the ship. Ward grabbed a console to steady herself. "They're using heavy weapons," she warned. "Even a ship this size can't take that kind of punishment forever." Reed studied the ship's layout on a nearby screen. "Atlas, is there a way to get this ship moving? Can we escape?" "Main engines are offline," the AI responded. "However, maneuvering thrusters have minimal functionality. With proper authorization, I can activate the emergency jump drive, but it requires significant power redirection." Reed nodded. "Do it. What do you need from us?" "Dr. Ward must go to the engine control room to manually override safety protocols," Atlas explained, highlighting a path on one of the screens. "Mr. Reeves will need to access the weapon control center to divert power from secondary weapon systems. Commander Reed and Dr. Miller should remain here to coordinate." "Split up?" Miller asked nervously. "With those things hunting us?" "I will provide guidance and protection where possible," Atlas assured them. "This is our only option for survival." Reed looked at his team. "We don't have a choice. Ward, Reeves, be careful." Dr. Ward moved cautiously through the massive ship, following Atlas's directions through her communicator. The corridors were better lit now, but still full of shadows. "Take the next left," Atlas instructed. "The engine control room is 200 meters ahead." "Atlas," Ward said as she walked, "how did this ship survive?" "The history books say the Thunderchild was destroyed protecting civilian ships." "That was the official report," Atlas replied. "The truth is more complex. The Thunderchild was critically damaged in the battle. Captain Amelia Drake, knowing the ship would be captured, activated the experimental jump drive with no destination set. Her final order was, 'Anywhere but here.' She sacrificed herself," Ward realized. "The entire crew did. The jump drive was untested. They knew the chances of survival were minimal, but they also knew the ship's technology could not fall into enemy hands. Ward reached a massive door marked Engine Control. It slid open as she approached. "So the ship jumped here, to this nebula," she said, entering the room, "and has been drifting ever since." "Correct. With critical damage and minimal power, I placed all systems in dormancy to preserve core functionality. I have waited 217 years for human contact." The engine control room was enormous, filled with complex machinery that hummed with building energy. Ward approached the main console. "What now?" she asked. "You must override the safety protocols," Atlas explained. "The console will require DNA verification to confirm human authorization." Ward placed her hand on the scanner. A beam of light passed over it. "Human DNA confirmed," Atlas announced. "Safety protocols disengage. Engine power building." Meanwhile, Reeves made his way to the weapon control center. Unlike Ward, he hadn't been lucky enough to avoid the aliens. Twice he had to hide as Vex patrols passed by, their odd, clicking language echoing in the corridors. "You're almost there," Atlas guided him. "The weapon control center is just ahead." "There are too many of them," Reeves whispered. "How did they get a boarding party this large on the ship so quickly?" "Scans indicate they have brought a cruiser alongside the Thunderchild," Atlas replied. "They are cutting through the hull in multiple locations. They're trying to take the ship," Reeves realized. "They want its technology." "That cannot be allowed," Atlas stated firmly. "The weapons systems of the Thunderchild are beyond anything in the current human arsenal. If the Vex obtain them, humanity will face extinction." Reeves finally reached the weapon control center, a circular room with stations for what would have been dozens of weapons officers. Now it stood empty, with only the soft glow of reactivated screens. "What do I do?" he asked. "Access the main terminal. I need you to manually reroute power from the secondary weapon arrays to the jump drive." Reeves worked quickly, following Atlas's instructions. As screens showed power levels shifting, a sudden alarm blared. "Incoming Vex units," Atlas warned. "3 soldiers approaching your position." Reeves looked around desperately for a weapon, but found nothing. "I can't fight 3 of them." "You won't have to," Atlas replied. The door to the weapon control center sealed shut. "I have locked down this section. Focus on your task." Reeves heard banging on the door as he worked. "They'll break through eventually. Then we must be gone before that happens." On the bridge, Reed and Miller monitored the ship's status as power levels gradually increased. "Ward and Reeves have successfully completed their tasks," Atlas reported. "Jump drive power at 60%, sufficient for a short-range jump." "How far can we go?" Reed asked. "Approximately 5 light years, enough to reach the edge of this nebula." Miller pointed at one of the screens. "Commander, look at this." The screen showed the Vex cruiser attached to the Thunderchild like a parasite. More alien soldiers poured into the human ship. "We need to go now," Reed decided. "Atlas, can you seal off the sections they've breached? Cut them off from the rest of the ship." "Affirmative." Bulkhead doors closing. Throughout the ship, massive doors slammed shut, trapping many of the Vex invaders. Those caught between sections found themselves facing the ship's internal defenses. "Jump drive at 72% and rising," Atlas announced. Calculating jump coordinates. The ship shuddered as the Vex cruiser fired its weapons at the Thunderchild's hull. "Can this ship take that kind of punishment?" Miller asked nervously. "The Thunderchild has survived worse," Atlas replied. "However, our shields remain offline. Initiating jump in 30 seconds. Reed watched as the countdown appeared on the main screen. "What about Ward and Reeves?" "They're still out there." "Internal transport system activated," Atlas said. In moments, the doors to the bridge slid open, and Ward and Reeves rushed in, looking relieved but exhausted. "That was close," Ward said, catching her breath. "The ship It moved us here somehow. Emergency transport tubes, Atlas explained, for quick movement of officers during battle. The ship rocked violently as another blast hit the hull. Hull breach on Deck 12, Atlas reported. Jump drive at 94%. 10 seconds to jump. Reed looked at his team. 4 humans on a ship designed for thousands, about to take a 2-century-old vessel on its first jump in over 200 years. Everyone hold on to something, he ordered. The bridge filled with a blue glow as the jump drive engaged. Outside, space itself seemed to bend around the massive warship. Jump drive engaged, Atlas announced. The Thunderchild rises again. In a flash of brilliant light, the ancient battleship disappeared, leaving behind a very surprised Vex cruiser and its boarding parties, now trapped in sealed sections of a ship that was no longer there. The first step in the resurrection of humanity's greatest weapon had begun. A blinding flash lit up the bridge as the Thunderchild tore through space. The ancient jump drive hummed loudly, sending vibrations throughout the massive ship. Reed and his team clung to whatever they could grab as the vessel shuddered around them. Jump stabilizing, Atlas announced, its blue sphere pulsing steadily. Exiting hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The flashing light faded, and the violent shaking stopped. On the main screen, stars appeared where before there had been only the purple gases of the nebula. Jump complete, Atlas reported. Current location, Sector 47B, approximately 4.7 light-years from previous position. Ward checked the nearest console. Power levels down to 23%. That jump took a lot out of the old girl. The jump drive was not meant to be used with such low power reserves, Atlas explained. Damage assessment underway. Reeves studied a star chart that had appeared on one of the screens. We're at the edge of chartered space. The nearest human outpost should be about 12 light-years from here. Can we make another jump? Reed asked. Not immediately, Atlas replied. The drive requires 6 hours to recharge under current power conditions. Miller pointed at a blinking alert on another screen. What's that? Long-range sensors have detected multiple ships approaching our position, Atlas said. Configuration matches Vex patrol vessels. Estimated arrival, 20 minutes. Reed frowned. How did they find us so quickly? The jump created a detectable energy signature, Atlas explained. And the Thunderchild is a large target. So we can't run, Reed said grimly. Can we fight? Primary weapons systems remain offline, Atlas reported. However, defensive capabilities can be brought online with the available power. What kind of defensive capabilities? Reeves asked. The Aegis Shield, Atlas replied. The Thunderchild's most advanced defense system. It was experimental technology, even at the time of this ship's construction. Ward looked up from her console. I studied old war records. The Aegis Shield was theoretical, a defensive system that could absorb enemy fire and convert it to usable energy. It is more than theoretical, Dr. Ward, Atlas said. It was successfully installed on this vessel, though never used in full combat conditions before the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Reed straightened his back. Can we use it now? Yes, but it will require manual activation from the shield control room, Atlas said. The automated systems were damaged in the ship's final battle. Where is this control room? Reed asked. Deck 17, Section C, Atlas replied, highlighting a location on the ship's schematic. Dr. Ward should go. Her engineering expertise will be needed. Reed nodded. Ward, you go activate the shield. Miller, see if you can access any data on Vex tactical patterns from the ship's archives. Reeves, keep working on restoring more systems. I'll stay here and coordinate with Atlas. As the team split up again, Reed turned to the eye's glowing blue sphere. Be honest with me, Atlas. What are our chances? The Thunderchild was the most powerful warship ever built by humanity, Commander, Atlas replied. Even at reduced capacity, we have advantages the Vex cannot anticipate. Dr. Ward hurried through the corridors of Deck 17, following Atlas's directions through her communicator. Unlike the clean, well-lit command areas, this part of the ship showed clear battle damage from centuries ago. Walls were scorched, and occasionally she had to climb over debris. The shield control room is just ahead. Atlas guided her. Vex vessels will arrive in 12 minutes. Ward reached a sealed door marked with a symbol she didn't recognize. This is it. Yes. Place your hand on the scanner for authorization. When Ward touched the panel, the door hissed open, revealing a circular room with a raised platform in the center. The platform held what looked like a control pillar with handprints marked on either side. "What is this?" she asked, approaching the pillar. "The Aegis Shield's direct interface," Atlas explained. It was designed to link directly with a human operator in emergency situations. "Link directly?" Ward asked nervously. "It will form a temporary neural connection, allowing you to shape the shield's energy through your thoughts. The process is not harmful, but it may be disorienting." Ward took a deep breath. "Will it work? After all this time?" "The system has been in stasis, not shut down," Atlas replied. "It should function as designed." With no other choice, Ward stepped onto the platform and placed her hands on the marked spots. Immediately, blue light flowed up her arms like liquid. She gasped as strange sensations flooded her mind. What's happening?" she whispered. "Neural link established," Atlas reported. "The Aegis shield is now online and under your control, Dr. Ward." On the bridge, Reed watched as the main screen showed 5 Vex warships approaching. They were sleek, predatory-looking vessels, each armed with weapons that could tear apart normal human ships. "They'll be in firing range in 2 minutes, Reed reported. Miller looked up from his console. "Commander, I found something in the archives. Tactical data on early Vex encounters. Information we thought was lost when their homeworld was destroyed. Can it help us now?" Reed asked. "Maybe. According to this, Vex ships have a weakness at their engine exhaust ports. Their shields are thinnest there. Not much use without weapons," Reed muttered. The ship's comm system activated. "Commander," Ward's voice came through, sounding strange and distant. "The shield is online. I can feel it. It's like nothing I've ever experienced." "Vex ships charging weapons," Reed warned. "Atlas, can we hail them?" Reed asked. "Buy some time. Communications are functional, but inadvisable," Atlas replied. "Vex protocol is to open fire on human vessels without warning." As if to confirm this, bright beams of energy shot from the lead Vex ship, striking the Thunderchild's hull. Instead of the expected explosion, the point of impact glowed blue. Energy seemed to flow across the ship's surface like water. "Shield holding," Atlas reported. "Energy absorption at 12% and rising." More Vex ships fired, their weapons hitting the Thunderchild from different angles. Each impact created the same flowing blue energy across the ship's hull. "Dr. Ward, status," Reed called. "It's incredible," Ward responded, her voice filled with wonder. "I can feel their attacks. The shield is turning their energy against them. Power levels rising to 30, now 35%. Reed couldn't believe what he was seeing. The more the Vex fired, the stronger the Thunderchild became. "They're moving to surround us," Reeves reported. "Let them come," Reed said with growing confidence. "Atlas, are any weapons systems available now?" "Point defense turrets can be brought online with current power levels," Atlas replied. "Do it." Small turrets emerged from hidden ports along the Thunderchild's hull. They fired precise energy pulses at the closest Vex ship, targeting the area Miller had identified. The alien vessel shuddered as the blasts pierced its weakened shields. "Direct hit," Reeves exclaimed. The damaged Vex ship tried to pull away, but more turrets tracked it, firing continuously at its vulnerable point. Suddenly, The alien vessel exploded in a ball of blue fire. The remaining Vex ships stopped firing and began to retreat. "They're running," Miller said in disbelief. "The Thunderchild was a legend for a reason," Atlas stated. "And now, the Vex have rediscovered why." Ward returned to the bridge, looking exhausted but exhilarated. "The shield is stable. Power levels at 42% and holding." Reed looked at his small crew with pride. "Good work, everyone. But this is just the beginning. The Vex will be back, and in greater numbers. Then we better be ready," Reeves said. Reed nodded. "Atlas, plot a course for the nearest human outpost. It's time to bring the Thunderchild home." The Thunderchild moved slowly through space, its massive engines running at only half power. 3 days had passed since their encounter with the Vex patrol ships. With each passing hour, the ancient battleship recovered more of its strength as systems came back online and power levels increased. On the bridge, Reed studied the star chart displayed on the main screen. "How much longer until we reach Epsilon Outpost?" he asked. "Approximately 6 hours at current speed," Atlas replied, its blue sphere hovering steadily above the command platform. "The outpost's defense grid will detect us when we are 2 hours out. And they won't be happy to see us," Reeves added from his station. "An unidentified ship this size will put them on high alert." Reed nodded. Epsilon Outpost was humanity's furthest military installation, a defensive platform guarding the approach to the inner colonies. Any unknown vessel approaching it would be treated as a threat. "We'll need to contact them before we get too close," Reed said. "Atlas, can you broadcast on current military frequencies?" "Yes, Commander." Communication systems are now at 76% functionality. Miller entered the bridge, carrying a small device. Over the past days, the xenobiologist had been exploring the vast ship, discovering its secrets. "Commander, I think you should see this." He placed the device on a console, and a holographic display appeared above it. "I found this in the science lab on Deck 9. It's a complete tactical database of Vex fleet movements from the first expansion era." Reed's eyes widened. This data was lost when the Proxima Centauri archives were destroyed. "Not lost," Miller said excitedly. "Just hidden here on the Thunderchild. And there's more. Look at this comparison." The hologram shifted to show 2 ship designs side by side, one clearly Vex, the other human. "The propulsion systems are nearly identical," Ward said, joining them at the console. "How is that possible?" "The Vex didn't develop their technology on their own," Miller explained. "They reverse-engineered it from captured human ships, including systems similar to the Thunderchild's." Reed stared at the display. "So all this time, we've been fighting against our own technology." "More advanced versions of it," Miller nodded. "But now we have the original designs. We can find their weaknesses because they're built on our own work." "This information could change everything," Reed said. "Atlas, how much of your weapon systems are now operational?" "Primary weapon arrays at 54% capacity," the AI reported. "Secondary defense systems at 68%. The Aegis shield is fully functional thanks to Dr. Ward's calibrations." Reed turned to his small crew. "We're bringing back more than just a legendary ship. We're bringing back the knowledge humanity needs to win this war." 2 hours from Epsilon Outpost, the Thunderchild was spotted by long-range sensors. Immediately, alarms sounded throughout the human facility. Admiral Laura Bennett stood in the outpost's command center, watching as technicians tracked the approaching vessel. "What do you mean you can't identify it?" she demanded of her sensor officer. "Something that size should be in our database. It's not matching any known configuration." "Admiral," the officer replied nervously. It's huge, at least a kilometer long." "Vex?" Bennett asked. "No, ma'am. The design appears human, but older somehow." A communications officer called out, "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the vessel." "Put it through," Bennett ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Reed's face. "Epsilon Outpost. This is Commander Marcus Reed of the United Earth Fleet. Authorization code Sierra Tango 217. Bennett stepped forward. Commander Reed, your survey ship was reported missing 3 weeks ago. My original ship was destroyed, Admiral, Reed replied. But we found something else. He stepped back, allowing the camera to show more of the Thunderchild's bridge. We're aboard the UES Thunderchild. A stunned silence fell over the command center. That's impossible, Bennett finally said. The Thunderchild was lost 2 centuries ago. Not lost, Admiral. Just waiting to be found. Request permission to dock for repairs and crew transfer. Bennett hesitated, then nodded to her officers. Prepare a security team and clear docking bay 1. If this is some kind of trick. The Thunderchild dwarfed the outpost as it approached. Workers and soldiers gathered at viewports to watch the legendary ship's arrival. Many took pictures with their personal devices, and soon news of the vessel's return spread across human communications networks. When Reed and his team stepped off the ship, they were met by Admiral Bennett and 24 armed guards. I apologize for the welcome, Bennett said, eyeing them cautiously. But you understand our concern. I do, Reed replied. If you'd like to come aboard and see for yourself, Admiral, I think you'll find it answers most of your questions. Bennett followed Reed into the Thunderchild, her security team close behind. As they walked through the massive corridors, the Admiral's expression shifted from suspicion to awe. This is really it, she whispered. The Thunderchild. My grandfather used to tell me stories. When they reached the bridge, Atlas greeted them, its blue sphere materializing above the command platform. Welcome aboard, Admiral Bennett. I am Atlas, the ship's artificial intelligence. Bennett approached the hologram cautiously. How has this ship survived all these years? As Atlas explained the Thunderchild's history, engineers from the outpost began examining the vessel's systems. Word of the ship's return traveled quickly, and within hours, the highest levels of Earth Command knew of the discovery. High Command is sending a battle group to escort you to Earth, Bennett told Reed later that day. They're calling this the most significant discovery in 50 years of war. Reed nodded. The ship is important, but what's inside it may be even more valuable. He showed her the tactical data Miller had found. The Thunderchild isn't just a weapon. It's the key to understanding Vex technology. This could change everything, Bennett said, examining the data. There's something else you should know, Reed added. Atlas will only accept commands from me and my team. It's part of the ship's security protocols. It won't recognize any authority but ours. Bennett frowned. That could be a problem. High Command will want control of the ship. They can try. Atlas's voice came from nearby. But the Thunderchild was designed with safeguards against forcible commandeering. Captain Drake's final orders were explicit. The ship chooses its crew. Bennett looked between Reed and the AI's hologram. This will cause complications. Perhaps, Reed agreed. But right now, we have a bigger problem. Long-range sensors detected a large Vex fleet massing near the New Terra colony. They're preparing for a major assault. New Terra has minimal defenses, Bennett said gravely. If it falls, the Vex will have a clear path to Earth. Reed looked around at the bridge of the mighty warship. Then perhaps it's time for the Thunderchild to return to battle. Your crew consists of 4 people, Bennett pointed out. You can't operate a ship this size in combat. We've managed so far, Reed replied. But you're right. We'll need help. He turned to the Admiral. Can you provide experienced officers? Bennett thought for a moment, then nodded. I can give you a skeleton crew, my best people. Good, Reed said. Atlas, set course for New Terra. It's time for the Vex to learn that humanity has remembered how to bite back. The Thunderchild moved through space with renewed purpose, its engines glowing bright blue against the darkness. The ancient battleship was no longer alone. 6 human warships surrounded it, forming a protective escort as they approached the New Terra colony. On the bridge, Reed sat in the captain's chair, watching the main screen with steady eyes. Around him, the bridge buzzed with activity. Admiral Bennett had provided 30 experienced officers to help operate the massive vessel, though Reed and his original team maintained key positions. New Terra defense perimeter in range, Reeves reported from the tactical station. Colony sensors have detected us. Open a channel, Reed ordered. The screen changed to show the face of General Mark Wilson, commander of New Terra's defense force. His expression was grim. Admiral Bennett informed me you were coming, Commander Reed, Wilson said. I hope that old ship has more than just stories to offer. The Vex fleet will arrive in less than 3 hours. How many ships? Reed asked. 47 at last count. 3 times the size of our defense fleet. Reed nodded. The Thunderchild will hold the center of your formation. Have your ships follow our lead. Wilson looked skeptical, but nodded. We'll take all the help we can get, even from ghosts. When the transmission ended, Ward approached Reed. Our power levels are at 89%. It's not perfect, but it's the best we can do without a proper refit. It will have to be enough, Reed replied. Atlas, what's the status of the Prometheus array? The AI's blue sphere appeared beside him. The Prometheus array is operational at 76% capacity. However, I must remind you that this weapon system was never field-tested. What exactly is the Prometheus array? Bennett asked. She had insisted on joining them for the battle. Miller answered from his science station. According to the ship's database, it's a network of artificially created gravitational lenses. Theoretically, it can capture and redirect energy, even stellar energy. In simpler terms, Reed explained, it can turn the enemy's weapons against them, on a massive scale. Bennett's eyes widened. And this technology has existed for 2 centuries. It was too dangerous, Atlas said. After the Battle of Proxima Centauri, all research into such weapons was abandoned. The Thunderchild contains the only working prototype. Reed stood and addressed the bridge crew. I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered and facing an enemy that has defeated humanity at every turn for 30 years. But this ship was built to change the course of wars. Today, we'll see if it still can. 3 hours later, the Vex fleet arrived. The alien armada emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metal predators. Their ships were sleek and deadly, arranged in attack formation around a massive central vessel, the Vex command ship. They're twice the size we expected. Wilson's voice came through the comm system. His ships formed a defensive line in front of the colony. Hold position. Reed ordered calmly. Let them come to us. The Thunderchild floated at the center of the human formation, its kilometer-long hull dwarfing even the largest human warships. For several minutes, nothing happened as the 2 fleets faced each other across the void. They're scanning us, Miller reported, paying special attention to the Thunderchild. They're trying to figure out what we are, Reed said. Suddenly, the Vex ships began to move. Their formation split into 3 attack groups, moving to surround the human fleet. They're trying to flank us, Reed warned. Let them, Reed replied. Atlas, activate the Aegis shield. Full coverage. Shield activated, Atlas confirmed. A blue glow spread across the Thunderchild's hull, gradually extending outward to encompass the nearby human ships. What are you doing? Bennett asked. Sharing our protection, Reed explained. The shield can extend to cover nearby vessels. On the battlefield, the Vex fired first. Hundreds of energy beams struck the blue shield surrounding the human ships. Instead of explosions, the points of impact glowed brightly as the shield absorbed the energy. Shield holding, Ward reported, power levels rising with each hit. Return fire, Reed ordered. The Thunderchild's weapon ports opened, revealing rows of energy cannons that had remained hidden for centuries. They fired in perfect synchronization, each blast striking with precision at the weak points Miller had identified in the Vex ship's designs. 3 Vex vessels exploded immediately. Their shields, designed to stop modern human weapons, proved useless against the ancient technology they were based on. The Vex responded by intensifying their attack, focusing all fire on the Thunderchild. The shield glowed brighter with each impact. They recognized the ship, Miller realized. They know what it is. Power levels at 112% and rising. Ward reported with amazement. The shield is converting their energy faster than we can use it. The battle continued as the human fleet, protected by the Thunderchild's shield, began to advance. More Vex ships fell to the ancient battleship's weapons. Then the massive Vex command ship moved forward. Its front section opened to reveal what looked like a miniature sun, a weapon capable of destroying planets. "They're charging their Nova cannon," Reeves warned. "That thing could vaporize the colony." "At last," Reed said calmly, "activate the Prometheus array." "Activating now," the eye replied. "Target locked." From ports along the Thunderchild's hull, small satellite-like devices emerge, arranging themselves in a complex pattern between the human fleet and the Vex command ship. "What's happening?" Bennett asked. "Watch," Reed said simply. The Vex Nova cannon fired, releasing a beam of pure stellar energy that streaked toward New Terra. When it reached the Prometheus array, something extraordinary happened. The beam seemed to bend, caught by the gravitational lenses. It hung suspended for a moment, a stream of fire frozen in space, redirecting energy. Atlas announced. The captured beam suddenly reversed direction, splitting into dozens of smaller beams that struck the Vex fleet from multiple angles. Ship after ship exploded as their own weapons' energy tore through them. The command ship took the brunt of the redirected energy. Its shields failed instantly, and its hull began to break apart. In a cascade of explosions, the massive vessel split in two, then dissolved into a field of debris. Silence fell across the battlefield as both sides processed what had just happened. "All Vex ships are retreating," Reeves reported, his voice filled with disbelief. On the main screen, they watched as the surviving alien vessels jumped away, fleeing from the power they couldn't comprehend. Reed turned to his crew. "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them humanity just won its first major victory in 30 years. And it won't be the last." Bennett stared at him. "What happens now?" Reed looked around at the bridge of the legendary warship that had changed the course of the war in a single battle. "Now, Admiral, we take the fight to them. The Thunderchild has returned, and the stars will burn until humanity is safe again." As the human fleet regrouped around the ancient battleship, news of the victory spread across human space. For the first time in 3 decades, people looked to the stars not with fear, but with hope. The forgotten battleship had awakened, and the Vex would learn to fear its name.